Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. This week's video is about Life is Strange 2, which is a game that I feel is really underappreciated in the series as a whole. I've gone over that in detail in some other videos, but today we're going to be focusing on some characters. I've been doing a series where I discuss an individual character, or a group, or something from Life is Strange in a lot of detail, and basically going over the personal history of that group or person. And so this week's video, I thought it would be great if we went over the hippie group that Sean and Daniel spend a lot of time with in Life is Strange 2. This group plays a very big role in the first chunk of the story, as it includes the only romance options for Sean, as well as a lot of characters who come back later and are very important to Daniel's story and both of their fates. So without further ado, let's discuss the history and break down the hippie group from Life is Strange 2. The character we're going to be starting off with is Finn. Finn is sort of the leader of this group. A lot of people defer to him. He's also the creator of the group, which we'll go over in his personal history. Finn's full name is Finn Nikmara. One of the things that will stick out to you first about Finn is his hair. He's a white guy who has locks. And this is also true of Cassidy. And while yeah, some white people have them, it's usually a very intentional choice and can be viewed as racially insensitive by certain people. This has led to a little bit of controversy within the fan base behind Life is Strange 2, just simply asking that if they wanted to go with this design choice, why didn't they just, have these characters be black? Really, it's just something I have to get out of the way when discussing these characters. You could argue that it helps with their character arcs themselves, showing that they are maybe slightly fraudulent at their core or performative. We're not here to discuss that today. I just felt the need to address that and then move on from it. Finn has many different tattoos across his body, some of them in blue ink. He has some circular tattoos that have an arrow going through them, and then on the back of each of his knuckles, he has a tattoo that spells out free pizza, which is just, it encapsulates his personality, I feel like. Finn has a scar across the bridge of his nose, as well as a septum piercing. He wears various different rings and other jewelry on his body, as well as there being some beads in his hair. Finn's background is pretty interesting, considering he kind of started this whole group. Finn is originally from Dillon, Montana, and has Scottish origin. He lived there with his parents and his 3 brothers, who, in his words, spoiled him. Finn's father ran a little scheme where he would sell cars that they had stolen and hotwired. Finn was eventually brought in on this and helped his father steal these cars. Eventually they were caught, and his father blamed his sons and put it all on them, and so Finn had to go to jail. Once he was released from prison, he ran away from home. He felt very betrayed by his father and felt he could never trust him again, and the way his brothers reacted made him feel that he couldn't really rely on them either, so he felt that there was nothing left for him there. Finn met a PO named Kareem, and despite them being at odds when they first met, they eventually grew a sort of friendship, and kept in touch even when they were separate. On October 18th, 2016, Kareem sent Finn a letter thanking him for letting him in and showing him his personality. He said that under Finn's anger and the betrayal was someone who wanted to be there for people, someone who wanted to have friends and care for those friends like family. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but essentially that Finn is a very caring person who wants to help others and wants to surround himself with friends and people who can be like family. This sort of sets the stage as to why Finn sort of became this leader type person. He felt betrayed and wanted a real family, a real group of people that he could rely on and travel with. A little while after that, he met Hannah, who we will circle back to later, in an abandoned house. The two quickly became friends and agreed to travel with each other. In terms of Finn's plans for the future, he wants to take the group to Costa Rica and have a big kick-ass beach house and have them all hang out there and relax. Obviously, that's not a real, legit plan or heist. He's not like Dutch, he's not trying to make it to Tahiti and he just needs a little more money. This is just sort of his fantasy perfect world for the future with his friends. Next, we will be discussing Hannah, who I mentioned was the first person to ever really join this group. At this point, it was just her and Finn traveling together and relying on each other. An interesting thing about Hannah is that in her left eye, you can see a burst blood vessel. Hannah has many tattoos, some on her face and others around her body. And we know this because Hannah isn't exactly shy. There's several moments throughout the camp that we see her walking around, not caring about what she's wearing. Hannah is also Navajo. Hannah's backstory is fairly interesting. Her mother was an artist and a drunk. Hannah tried to get her into rehab countless times, but it never really worked out. Hannah tried many different ways to help her mom. When rehab didn't work, she would work in order to get money to purchase more art supplies for her, hoping that it would help in some way. However, she found out that her mom was simply returning the supplies for the money and using it to buy more alcohol. This is what made her decide to leave home. She was tired of having to take care of her own mother, so she left. She began to travel with a dog named Black Flag. However, this dog's story winds up being pretty sad, which, interestingly enough, kind of parallels Mushroom and Daniel. When she met Finn in the abandoned warehouse, they wound up having to run away from law enforcement. They ran to a train station and attempted to hop on the train. However, she wasn't able to get her dog on board as well. She recalls watching him run along the side of the train, and she never saw him again. She really hopes that the cops picked him up and was able to take him to a better home. All of this backstory with her really shows you that her stern personality is really more of a protective measure than anything else, and that deep down she is very compassionate. She was fairly emotionally intelligent, trying to help her mom by giving her access to her hobbies, trying to find something that could distract her mom from her problems. And when she was betrayed by that, she sort of became closed off because of that. This is also illustrated in her and Finn's relationship. The two are physically intimate, however, they aren't exactly exclusive. This is shown by her sort of lack of reaction if Sean tries to date Finn, as well as the fact that they simply refer to each other as fuck buddies. This once again reflects Hannah's dislike of getting close, her fear of getting close and then being betrayed, that kind of thing. So it all kind of adds up as to why she acts the way she does when Daniel and Sean, two completely new people, show up and join the group. Eventually, Finn and Hannah would wind up meeting Cassidy, who we will discuss next. Cassidy is another possible love interest for Sean, the first being Finn. She also has locks, which I've seen specific posts about her and her hair online, but we've already discussed that. She has 2 hemp necklaces, as well as various other jewelry. One of them even has 2 silver keys attached, which could be a symbol of a past friend or relationship. Cassidy is from Texas originally. You can definitely hear it in her accent. Growing up in Texas, Cassidy had a very abusive father who she describes as being meth addicted. He attacked her boyfriend because the boyfriend wasn't white, and that's what sparked her leaving home. She also mentions that her mom didn't really do anything. Her mom wasn't necessarily abusive, but she was complicit and didn't really step up for her at all. All of those things combined, Cassidy knew she needed to get away. Cassidy doesn't give an exact time frame when she met Finn and Hannah. However, we know that when they did, Finn and Cassidy developed this sort of sibling relationship. At least that's the best way to describe it, in my opinion. Hannah actually described Cassidy as pissed at everything and unable to commit to anything. And this is definitely reflected in the romance that you can have with her as Sean, as it's not the same really as what you can have with Finn. Cassidy's is more of a hookup. It's more focused on the physical aspects and feeling something. She's kind of wishy-washy. She's not very interested in Sean becoming her next boyfriend. She's more interested in just having fun and having these connections, which is very different than Finn. I think this is another example of how the backstories of these characters really influences them. With the attack on her boyfriend in Texas, it may have caused her to become fearful of committing to someone, out of a fear that they may get hurt because of her. The other thing is the relationship that her mom and dad had also might have scared her away from having anything like that, because she saw that and that didn't work, so she thinks that maybe it isn't in the cards for her. Hannah also mentions that she gets really annoyed with Cassidy over her constant complaints about chores and things like that. The two definitely have a bit of a rivalry. They kind of butt heads quite often. However, according to Hannah, they both will get high and sort of talk things out that way, and so the cycle continues. They're just conflicting personalities. They don't really dislike each other, they just get on each other's nerves very easily. And it really emphasizes how this group, as it grows, really becomes more of a family. I'm sure many of you who have siblings get on each other's nerves constantly, but at the end of the day, you're still family, you still care about each other, and you'll find a way to work it out. Next on our list is Penny. Penny's full name is Baptist Dean Michael, but he simply goes by Penny in the group. Penny's hair is very interesting as he has bleached ends. Another interesting thing about his appearance is that his trousers are sort of decorated with tape, I guess you could say, as well as a patch of a pentagram. Penny wears a few different things. He has a gold septum piercing, a few necklaces, one that actually has a silver key similar to Cassidy's. Penny has several different tattoos. The ones on his face simply highlight his features like his cheekbones. He has a very stylized heart tattooed on his chest. And written across his knuckles are the words "epic fail," which that's definitely something a Life is Strange writer would cook up. Penny is originally from Detroit, Michigan. We don't know much about Penny's backstory, but we can assume with the way that Detroit was at the time that he lived in an impoverished area and eventually ran away from home for some reason. Eventually, he made his way down to New Mexico, where he encountered a boy who went by the name Jinx. His real name was Arthur Lee. The two clicked instantly. However, Jinx suffered from a lot of different issues, such as mood swings, delirium, and even self-harm. Eventually, Jinx would give Penny a coin, basically to symbolize his trust, saying that he hadn't trusted anyone like him before, and the two would stick together. While the two were at the pot farm that we see in Life is Strange 2, Jinx would wander off and basically leave no trace, no note, no anything. So Penny keeps his coin, hoping that eventually he will find Jinx again and be able to give it back to him. While continuing to work at the farm, Penny met Finn, Hannah, and Cassidy and wound up joining their group. Which, it's interesting, Penny is probably the newest real addition to this group. The main core family seems to be Finn, Cassidy, and Hannah. However, they seem to welcome new members and they come and go. At least that's how Cassidy makes it sound. A perfect example of people who sort of come and go in the group would be Anders and Ingrid. Anders and Ingrid are from Sweden, and they wanted to visit the United States. Now you might be wondering, hey, why did these people who are, vacationing over here wind up working on the pot farm and sort of joining this group? Well, it's because despite saving up all this money from working in a coffee shop, Ingrid and Anders ran out of money halfway through their trip. So they are doing the best they can to make ends meet without their proper documents. And while they may not be an official member of the group, they may not continue to travel with this group afterwards, they're a good example of the kinds of people that Finn welcomes into the group, even for short periods of time, just because their paths cross. It's interesting, and it shows the kind of dynamic that this group has, that people sort of come and go as they need. I guess another great example would be Sean and Daniel themselves, as they join for a short period of time and then are separated. And while Sean considers wanting to stay with the group permanently, the initial purpose of joining this group was to simply help them travel across the United States. All in all, I think this group of characters is really fascinating, and it's a great sort of example of building very rich and thorough side characters. I think they're all very well written, and I know my favorite part of Life is Strange 2 is the time we spend with this group on the pot farm, as well as planning the heist, things like that. I'm so sorry if I look funny for this last bit of the video. My contact was being weird and now my eye is watering, but I need to finish this video, darn it. All in all, this group is absolutely fascinating in my opinion. When it comes to the fate of the group members, we don't really know much, but we do know that Cassidy and Finn, and I'm assuming Hannah as well, can meet up with Sean in Mexico after the game concludes if you decide to escape there. And I think that's sort of the perfect ending for Sean. The whole point of Life is Strange 2, in my opinion, is that Sean and Daniel need different things and are on different paths. And despite being family, they have to do what's best for each other first, even if that means being apart. So I think Sean staying with this group of people around his age, with someone he's possibly romantically interested in, is probably the best way for things to go for him. Otherwise, we don't really know much about them. They aren't referenced in Life is Strange games later on, and so we really don't know what became of them, no matter what the ending is. So all that to say, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed this character deep dive. I really appreciate you guys for watching this one, and I hope you have a good morning, or evening, or, you know, whatever.